On this episode, episode 28 of the Fantasy Flyer, Derek and Taylor are going to go over the entire Week 14 football slate, including your news, injuries, notes, and the fantasy repercussions. We're also going to give you the host v host and Fantasy Flyer scoring updates, and we are going to update you with the Fantasy Flyer power rankings, all of the positions, and all of the teams. You don't want to miss it. Episode 28 of the Fantasy Flyer starts right now. Welcome to the Fantasy Flyer, episode 29. We're going to take a nice calm intro here. It's actually episode 28. Excuse me. I'm one
I
ahead of
was
myself.
not expecting that.
You were not. That sound is a welcome to the fantasy playoffs. It is playoff time. My name is Derek. I'm in the fantasy pad. This man is Taylor. He's still in the fantasy dojo. What are you going to when you're not in the dojo for your family?
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to change. Is it like it's going to be like the Dojopolis? That's welcome to episode 28, not 29. It is the power ranking show. It is the review of week 14. And again, congratulations to all of you who have made it to the fantasy football playoffs in whatever league you are in, dynasty or 12 team or 10 team or 6 team or whatever it may be. It is crunch time officially. Yeah. In our league, it's no more because we are fighting for. You're fighting for a first. Well, actually, it's not even your first round pick.
No.
There's a first round pick to take. We in dynasty leagues have to use the results of the playoffs to sort our draft order. So a lot of different pieces are moving. But last with football around the corner, what did you think? Let's start off with this. I'm going to start off with a generic question. What did you think of week 14? What were your overall thoughts? I was really impressed by your Patriots win, which I told you on Monday Night Football. Carolina beating Seattle, bit of a shocker there to me. Detroit beating Minnesota made Minnesota look amateur at a lot of different points. So didn't expect that one either.
Yeah.
I was Denver keeping up with Kansas City for a little bit there. Ooh.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that game. And then, I mean, this was Thursday, but Raiders and Rams much closer than expected.
Yeah, who could forget that?
Yeah, we talked about that a bit. And then your boys, Texans and Cowboys. We've been saying it all season.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, the Texans have sort of been in games, and they were very close to winning this one.
Don't.
Yeah,
that's all it is. That was just a whole bunch of this.
And then last one I'll point out is the Niners just dominating the Bucks.
Man, I thought that was going to be such a good game. I really did. And then it was like I took a nap on Sunday and I woke up like 45 minutes later, and it was literally from like 4:30 until like 5:15. It was 21-0. So I was like, oh, this game's not fun. But we'll start off with the 9. We got a little bit of a different schedule. We're into the Saturday football portion of the season from here on out, I believe, except for New Year's Day. I think New Year's Day is the only one that doesn't have football on it, and I could be wrong there too. But yeah, I'm gonna let you take it away with the 9 news, injury notes, etc. It is the 9 segment. Mr. Guru of the 9, take it away from the dojo.
Sure thing. So there are, and we'll talk about this when we go through the games, but I just want to point out there are 3 Saturday games this week. Colts versus Vikings, Ravens versus the Browns, and Dolphins against the Bills. So yeah, we'll get into that later. But starting with Arizona, Rondale Moore, his groin injury, and Kyler Murray with his knee injury have both been placed on IR. So that's a pretty big hit for the Cardinals, but their record did not really have them in a place to probably not going to make the playoffs if not already a guarantee that they weren't. So unfortunately, Kyler tore his ACL this weekend. Like the third play of the game. So Colt McCoy played most of the game. He also at the moment is questionable with a neck injury. Was a limited participant on Wednesday. Um, yeah, I don't know if you're a Kyler Murray owner and there's not a lot out there, which you'd have to be in a pretty deep league to be looking at some of these guys. But McCoy should be the starter, depending on how how his injury fares through the week. If not, Trace McSorley and David Blau are the other QBs on the team, which don't really know what to say about either of them, other than I think McSorley is a pretty decent runner. But that's really all I got on those guys. Atlanta, another IR placement, Mariota with a knee injury put on IR. So the rookie Desmond Ritter will take over as the starter, and they recently signed Logan Woodside as the backup. I actually didn't see any of this game. I don't know. We can, I guess, talk about it when we get to this game, but I don't know what happened to Mariota there.
I don't either.
Okay.
It's a great surprise to me. So we won't have a lot to talk about, I guess.
um, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson still has the questionable tag with his knee injury. He did miss the Tuesday and Wednesday's practice. Huntley got a concussion this past weekend. He is also tagged with questionable, but was a full participant Wednesday. But that does not mean he is out of the concussion protocol. So keep an eye on that if you're owning that tandem. Buffalo made a nice signing, bringing on the retired and now unretired Cole Beasley. He's a good fit, obviously. He's been on with the team. He knows the system. McKenzie and Crowder, who's on IR, have been sort of filling his role. So that's a good depth piece for them. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he could potentially sort of ease his way back into that spot, maybe a 50-50 with McKenzie or whatnot, but we'll have to see how that pans out. Um, moving on to Chicago, Justin Fields, illness, Chase Claypool knee, both questionable, both missed practice Wednesday. Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst calf. He's listed as questionable. Zach Taylor acknowledged Wednesday that it seems doubtful he'll play Sunday. T. Higgins, hamstring, Tyler Boyd, finger, both questionable and limited on Wednesday. Cleveland, David Njoku with his knee injury keeps popping up on the injury report. He is questionable and limited on Wednesday. I think this was kind of the route they took last week, so I wouldn't be too concerned, but keep an eye on it throughout the week to see whether it changes. Mari Cooper, looks like this was a rest day for his hip, unless I mistyped that and it was something else. But yeah, he did not practice on Wednesday, but I believe it was a rest day. Dallas, another signing here. They signed T.Y. Hilton, who has not played the entire season. So I don't know what kind of shape he's in, but it's a good depth piece, experienced player who was obviously, or I won't say was, is a very talented wide receiver. Kind of had a falling off at the end there, but also didn't have great QB. So I don't know if you had more thoughts on your Cowboys here signing Hilton.
Um, I wouldn't get too excited about it. Um, I I'm actually checking through snap percentages, and I just got to the Cowboys, and James Washington barely saw the field.
Mm.
Granted, it was his first game back. Saw 15% of snaps. Noah Brown 70, Michael Gallup 76, CeeDee Lamb 96, which is his highest of the season since week 1. Um, I don't think signing him means a lot to. I mean, you might see 2 and 3% bump or bumps down to everybody, but the person this most threatens in my eyes is James Washington, which is kind of unfair to him because he was injured.
Mhm.
So, the only thing you can probably be certain of is that Jalen Tolbert will not be vital to this Cowboys offense anytime soon, if at all this year or next year. And that James Washington is probably going to have to battle T.Y. Hilton for some snaps. Noah Brown was absolutely lovely.
Yeah, he looked decent.
So those are the 1, 2, and the 3, which good for Noah Brown. Carved out between the Michael Gallup injury and
Mhm.
the James Washington injury, carved out a place in this offense. So that's all I really got for that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with a lot of that. But they did. So the interesting thing was they signed him to a 1-year deal, which I don't know how that works this late in the season, if that is for the rest of the season or if that'll wrap around in the next season. But it was like 800,000 with 700,000 in I don't know if it was specifically playoffs or incentives in general. I don't know if it's playoff incentives. I would assume it's just for this year.
It is. He's a UFA in the free agency period come March.
Yeah. Okay.
600,000 base salary, cap hits 800,000, dead cap 600. So he's gonna be at the rest of the year. Like dead cap
Yeah.
isn't gonna pay. But yeah, 600 base 200 in roster, and it looks like he has per game active bonus is 200,000. So he's actually getting paid per game. And then if he gets bonuses based on the incentives.
Yeah.
100,000 for a wild card win, 150 for divisional, 200 for conference championship, and 250 for Super Bowl. So he can technically make upwards of $1.5 million for about 2 months of work.
Yeah. Not too shabby. Moving on to Denver. Poor Mike Boone comes back, gets injured again, back on IR, done for the season. Russell Wilson got a concussion. Cortland Sutton with his hamstring injury and Kendall Hilton hamstring as well. They were all questionable and didn't practice Wednesday. Green Bay, Romeo Dobbs, ankle questionable. He himself said he expects to play Monday. And I guess it should be noted that he had returned to practice before the bye week. So trending in the right direction there. Houston, this is a big blow. Damian Pierce got hurt in the game, ankle injury. He's listed as questionable at the moment, so I don't know what that means if they're being hopeful or not, but he, Brandon Cook's calf, Nico Collins' foot are all questionable and didn't practice on Wednesday. So the interesting thing is they waived Eno Benjamin, so if he doesn't play, Rex Burkhead would be the biggest beneficiary. Marlon Mack, I think. No, not Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is with Denver. Yeah, I don't know. Not too.
Ogunbowale.
Yes, Agumbawale. Thank you. Yeah, honestly, not sure I'm too interested in anybody else on that team if he's gone.
I mean, you shouldn't have been interested in a lot of from Houston anyway.
Yeah. Moving on to Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence still has this toe injury listed as questionable, didn't practice Wednesday, but this is the same sort of prescription they had last week and he played through it, so not too concerned there. Kansas City, Mecole Hardman with his abdomen injury. Looks like he practiced Wednesday, so he was on IR. He is in the window to come off of IR. But they said he's still ramping up, so he's not confirmed for Sunday. So keep an eye on him if you held on to him. He would eat into obviously MVS and Sky Moore. Juju should still be fine. Travis Kelce still be fine. And then another Kansas City guy here, Kadarius Toney with his hamstring, apparently was a limited participant Wednesday. So maybe.
Oh my God! Who the hell cares?
Yeah, right. Not sure at this point in the season how much of a factor he'll be. Las Vegas, Josh Jacobs, quad, and apparently hand listed as questionable, limited participant Wednesday. He's been questionable basically every week and has been dominant every week, so hopefully not a big deal. The Rams, John Wolford, neck is already listed as out. Apparently they feel pretty good about how Mayfield played and are fine
If they
listing
feel
him as
bad,
out.
if they feel bad about it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not really a team that too many people are relying on pieces from. Miami, Jeff Wilson with a hip injury, questionable and did not practice Wednesday. New England, Ramondre Stevenson, unfortunately got hurt in this weekend's game, and I think he did come back, but then went out again. So it's an ankle injury. I think it's a high ankle sprain to be specific. I'm not 100% sure. He and Devontae Parker, it just says head for Devontae Parker. I'm assuming it was some sort of concussion. Not totally sure.
Did you watch it?
That particular injury I did not see.
Oh, okay, because he got his cage rattled,
Really?
and then they lined him up, and Nelson Aguilar called the playoff because he couldn't stand at the line of scrimmage.
Holy crap.
Yeah, he barely could stand, I should say. It's not like he fell over, but he was
Yeah.
on the line, and Nelson Aguilar backed off the line and was doing this to Mac Jones. So
Damn.
he will not probably be playing this week.
Yeah, I would not expect that.
He got his bell rung. Like, I mean, it was bad.
Dang.
Yeah, that's why he would have had a pretty good game from what it looked like. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully he heals up pretty good. Ramondre, has there been any clarity on his ankle? I know he left the game, came back for like 7 plays, and then left again.
Yeah.
I
They
want
taped it up and tried to get him to, or he tried to play through it, but apparently it was too uncomfortable.
He wasn't in a walking boot or on crutches, so I
No.
would think it's like a lower ankle sprain, and those would heal potentially in a week. So that'd be my guess, or maybe like he just rolled it and
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he tried to come in and play on it
I
is
wouldn't think
kind
it's a
of,
high ankle sprain or something like that. Like you wouldn't be able to play. So like
yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're both listed as questionable and didn't practice Wednesday. So keep an eye on them. If you were looking at them, Jacoby Myers, concussion, Damian Harris, thigh, they were limited participants and are listed as questionable. So Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris filled in at running back, and both actually did pretty decently. So I don't think that there's too much concern, at least from a Patriots organization standpoint. But if you are looking to, I mean, waivers have already gone through, but those are the guys you would have been looking at. New Orleans, Juwan Johnson, ankle, Adam Troutman, ankle, both questionable, both limited participants on Wednesday. Dwayne Washington, illness, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday. Mark Ingram, I feel like we already said this, but it was resurfaced as if he just now went on IR. I guess maybe he's just been out, so he's now officially on IR. So Dwayne Washington is the backup to Kamara.
I don't know if he is. They picked up Benjamin off waivers this afternoon.
I don't know if that guy is having like what do you call it, like attitude issues with teams or what, but ever since the Cardinals were not happy with his sort of dealings with them and how he was handling things, he's just been bouncing around. Supposedly a guy that in the beginning of the season the Cardinals really liked. Anyways, what's that?
I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I just shrugged. I couldn't
uh,
answer that for you. Obviously,
yeah.
he's gonna find some work. I think he'll back up Kamara. I
Yes,
don't think
I
Washington's
don't.
gonna.
Yeah, I don't think Washington's any better or worse. Obviously already been playing a lot. Washington been out most of the season. The Giants, Richie James, concussion, didn't practice Wednesday. Daniel Bellinger, ribs, limited participant Wednesday, both questionable. The Jets, Mike White, rib injury, questionable, limited participant Wednesday. And it was noted that the Jets are still prepping as though he'll start this weekend. Corey Davis concussion, didn't practice Wednesday, is questionable. Philadelphia, this is good news. Dallas Goedert with his shoulder injury is in the window to come back from IR. He did practice Wednesday, but no definitive sort of one way or the other on his return. But it was noted that he appears to be on track for Sunday. So that could be yet another piece for the Eagles to keep on steamrolling. Pittsburgh, Pat Fryermuth foot, Najee Harris hip, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday. Kenny Pickett concussion, questionable, limited participant Wednesday. San Francisco, Deebo Samuel, this particular play where he got hurt looked real bad. I thought he might have like broken his ankle or something, but anyways, it says knee and ankle. He is out. Shanahan expects him to be back in 3-ish weeks. So he is
So
not going to be
playoffs.
part of your fantasy playoff picture, but he will be part of their playoff picture. Brock Purdy, oblique, questionable. Shanahan said on Tuesday that Purdy should be able to play without risking any more serious injury, but the pain could impact his throwing and mobility. If Purdy doesn't play, the 49ers will have to turn to Josh Johnson, which I don't even know the last team I saw him play for. He's been all over the
I
league.
think
So
I want to say the Jets 3 years ago. And ever since then, he's probably just been sitting on the bench waiting. So
yeah.
that's a guess.
Yeah. So for the team's sake, hope that Purdy can play. I mean, I guess Johnson has quote unquote league experience, but I don't really know how good he is. Seattle Seahawks, Kenneth Walker is not on the injury report, so that's good news. Tampa Bay, and they play actually on Thursday. Against who?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Tampa Bay, Julio, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday. Titans, Dontrell Hilliard, neck out. Treylon Burks, concussion. Robert Woods, illness, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday. Tannehill with his ankle injury listed as questionable, limited participant Wednesday. But as we stated before, he's played through this, so that should be fine. Washington, Antonio Gibson, and Brian Robinson, foot and quad, respectively, both questionable, both limited participants on Wednesday. That is it for the 9.
Any one, I guess a little side note, if Gibson and Robinson both can't go, who is next in line? Because JD McKissick's on the IR.
I was just going to say, yeah.
They're calling somebody up from the practice squad. And they, who did they play? That's another good question.
Jonathan Williams, I guess, would
Can't sleep on Jonathan Williams. I believe it was it last year or the year before. He had one. He got called up in a similar scenario, and he ended up actually having a really good game.
be. Yeah.
The
I'll
name
also,
sounds familiar somehow.
yeah, I'll also throw
The
out
Giants.
Jared Patterson. He seemed to be having some buzz 1 or 2 seasons ago, but nothing came of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up. You said Jonathan Williams.
Yes.
Man,
He has
sounds
played a handful of snaps in
this
4
season.
games. Yeah.
Yeah, this season. Let me see what his career stats are real quick because I'm super interested. I'm pretty sure it was last year. He had like, it was definitely, was it the Gibson days? Man, this is so frustrating.
I see.
No, not 20.
Yeah, not 2021. I see
Jarrett Patterson. Good heavens.
a couple of games that he had in 2019 that were pretty solid. Only 1 game in 2021.
Maybe that was it. Recent games. No, this is so weird. So weird. Let me go to 2020 and see if that was it. That would have been the I only had 1 game in 2020 where he played, so it wasn't that one. one game against the Texans then. 2021. Seven carries for 45. Oh, though. Good God. Who knows what the guy's done since then? You haven't seen him because of Antonio Gibson.
Yeah.
He had 26 for 104 touchdown against, you guessed it, the Houston Texans. They actually lost that game too. Had a touchdown on the ground, caught 3 targets for 17 yards. It was back in 2019. Oh, how times have changed. Anyway, good 9 segment. We are going to jump right into our week 14 review. We'll start off with the Vikings and the Lions. Vikings lose this one 23, Lions 34. Headline: Lions keep rolling over woeful Vikings. JJ sets his record. Well, it says it. Lions are rolling. They're 5-1 in their last 6. The Vikings are slipping. They've lost 2 of their last 4 now. Roster, which doesn't sound like they're slipping really, but when you were 9-2 and now you go to 10-4, it makes it sad. Or you're 8-2 and then you went whatever. The build for the Vikings is fantastic. I just don't know why they can't stay consistent. Justin Jefferson had 223 yards in this
23,
game.
yeah.
Excuse me. New Minnesota single game record for receiving yards, and they ended up losing this game. Kirk Cousins threw for 4 1/4. Like this team had all of the offense, and they somehow only scored 23 points. I know the fumble from Dalvin Cook in the red zone didn't help. That was, by the way, I watched that play live. It was disgusting. I don't know what Dalvin Cook was doing. It looked like the announcers thought he was going to do like a jump pass, and it kind of looked like he was going for that, but he never had control of the ball. He walked up to the line and did like 2 or 3 shimmies, and then he stayed behind the line. He didn't try and find a gap or try and go to the edge. He just stayed there, and that doesn't work. You can't do that. You stay in one spot as a running back, you lose.
Right.
So, and then either he went to shift it or he went to move the ball and to like cradle it or something like that, and it just popped out. And then he got tackled after it popped out. And Kirk Cousins had abandoned the backfield at this point. He handed it off to him and ran off. I don't know, get a drink of water. I don't know where he went.
But didn't he end up making the tackle on whoever recovered it?
He kind of did, but that's not saying a lot for
Yeah.
the ball popping
No.
out. But he could have been there. So
Yeah.
you fall on it, you at least get 3 out of it instead of giving it up. The game could have been closer, but it was not good. Surprisingly, the Lions run defense has been stepping up. We criticize them so much first probably half of the year, right? And now all of a sudden they are one of the one of the lower rushing teams, less than 100 yards average over their last 3, including this game. 93.7 total. This game they only gave up I think 50 on the ground, if that.
I see 22, and that's with a negative 2 carries from Madison and negative 1 yard total from him.
And then 23 yards from Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they had more than that, so it's even worse than I thought. I mean, but they couldn't finish on 3rd down. They couldn't run the ball. They lost the turnover battle. 2 turnovers. Detroit had none. They're 4 for 10 on 3rd downs, which really isn't all that horrible. But if you're losing, you can point to it. Goff has been showing his arm recently, which doesn't help when you have a high-powered offense like that. Jamison Williams, he shows up, has 1 catch for 41 yards and a touchdown. Welcome to the league. Detroit's run game wasn't much better. Williams and Swift only combined for 58 rush yards, but it doesn't. I mean, Goff threw for 330, 27 for 39, had 3 touchdowns. DJ Chark has inserted himself in their pass core very nicely. He's benefiting from the lack of TJ Hawkinson targets. Minnesota is kind of slipping in my mind. They have a relatively easy schedule remaining, but they need some big wins to lock up the division. They could have locked up the division with this one. They win this game, and they lock up the NFC North. Chark 6 for 7, 6 catches, 7 targets, 94 yards, 1 touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown 6 catches on 9 targets, 68 yards, so close to an awesome number. Reynolds 5 catches on 6 targets, 51 yards, and a touchdown as well. For Minnesota, we mentioned Kirk Cousins. He was 31 for 41, 425 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jefferson 11 catches on 15 targets for his 223. Didn't have any touchdowns. I think he got one robbed. A
Yeah.
play where he stepped out of bounds. It's 50-50 as to whether it happened. Hawkinson 6 catches on 8 targets, 77 yards. He has quietly established carved himself a nice set of targets in the pass game as well. Adam Thielen 7 catches on 8 targets, 65 yards, and a touchdown. His last 5 weeks have been very good for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Minnesota will go home to face the Colts, who are coming into town. Detroit travels to East Rutherford to take on the Jets in what will be a cold and probably snowy Sunday, potentially snowy Sunday. Anything else from the? Yeah, potentially. Anything else for this one from you?
The swift change in usage from last game is weird. I don't know what's going on with his injury.
I don't. We talked about this last week with ZG with Zach Graham, and it's, I mean, neither one really. Jamal Williams saw one more snap than Swift in this one. Justin Jackson actually had 29% of snaps. Jason Cabina had 16%. I don't know who that is, and at some point he carried 40. Had 40. It's either fullback. Am I missing something? He had 16% of snaps in this. I don't know. There's a huge. The only thing I can say for certain is that Jamal Williams isn't getting 55 to 60% of the carries like he was for a couple weeks there. DeAndre Swift, I should say, like his ceiling is probably 50%, but you can expect 30 to 40% of snaps.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You're not gambling on them because they use them in the red zone. So you're not gambling on them, so to speak, but consistency is it's becoming a bit of a pain for those two.
Yeah, for sure. That's uncomfortable going into the fantasy playoffs. So not really sure what to say on those guys, but at least in terms of carries or attempts, Jamal Williams still the quote unquote number one.
Right. Next game, Jaguars 36, Titans 22. Remember I said Titans, this is the game. This is a big game. You got to win this one. You got to show that you got the division locked up. You got to put your foot down. And then they gave up 7 billion yards to Evan Ingram. Headline for this game: Jacksonville remains an AFC South fight with a Titans slaughter. This game, the score is 36-22. Other than a garbage time touchdown, the Titans wouldn't have been this close. It was 36-14 until there was like a few minutes left in the fourth. So,
yeah.
Tennessee really, they didn't step up in this. Jacksonville, they had a huge passing attack from Trevor Lawrence. Evan Ingram had a monster game. There's only. It's absolutely true. Manly game. How manly? 11 catches on 15 targets, 162 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got up for one of them. It was a very nice play. Tennessee had a good run game. Like I said, Derrick Henry will return to his form here. It comes down to the passing game. The passing game wasn't horrible. It just got out. You just got beat.
Yeah.
They just got outgunned. Chigazim Okonkwo. I still think I said
he came through.
He did. So I mean, everybody basically did except for like Robert Woods, and Robert Woods actually had a good game in some points. So, Austin Hooper, he had a good game. Tight ends in a game that I said both these tight ends you can't really trust. They both did really well, like all of them. It's like, so I was like, all right, well that's how that's gonna go, I guess. Where did I leave off on my notes here? Honestly, they could have done a worse job. Tennessee could have, but there was so little Tennessee could do to match Jacksonville. I literally put in my notes: tight ends have a great game. ... and a shrug emoji. There's no you don't give up points at all to the tight ends, and both leading receivers from each team are tight ends. All in all, Jacksonville gets to stay in the battle for the AFC South with this one. Travis Etienne, it's important to note, he has not, this is the second game in a row where he's been kind of like meh. Tennessee's run defense isn't exactly anything to sneeze at. I believe over the last 3 games, I mean, on the season, they only give up 81.3 yards per game, which is 3rd in the league. Only 2 better teams, San Francisco and Baltimore. And their last 3, they've only given up 78. And I think they only gave up 54 to Travis Etienne. So they did a good job. But
This game, I only see 32 from Travis.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. 60 for their total team rushing yards.
Maybe I was looking at the total and I have the wrong number. I don't know. Either way, Tennessee stops the run and they did it again. But yeah, I guess the good side for Etienne is we've seen active running backs have really good games against Dallas. We saw Dameon Pierce have it. He missed half the 4th quarter. We saw Jonathan Taylor have a good game the week before. Dallas is their next opponent. Go ahead, Travis. Have a 100-yard game again. It's fine. Tannehill, 25 for 38, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Derrick Henry, 17 carries, 121 yards, 1 touchdown. Austin Hooper, 5 for 5, 68 yards. Chigoziem Okonkwo, 6 for 6, 45 yards, and a beast of a touchdown. He's the most efficient tight end in the league, I believe.
Really?
Yeah. After, I mean, he was 6 for 6 in this game. He catches a lot of the targets that are thrown at him because nobody looks at him a threat, and I think they should start.
Yeah.
I kind of want to check out real quick. Wow, look at that. First thing that pops up. Yeah, 6 catches for 45 and a touchdown. Eagles, he had 4 for 68. Bengals, 3 for 35. Only had a catch in any of the ones before, but he's had himself actually a silently really good year. Let me see what his targets are. He has 31 targets in his career. Only says 21 catches. How can that be? I guess that could be the most. That could still be the most efficient. For Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, 30 for 42, 368 yards, 3 touchdowns. Evan Ingram mentioned his big game. Zay Jones, 8 catches on 12 targets, 77 yards, and a touchdown. He's
Good bounce back from him.
And he's, well, here's the thing is, even when he didn't have a good game, Christian Kirk didn't have an amazing one.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to see how this dynamic is playing out, because in my opinion, they're starting to level out. And the last stat I have here, Christian Kirk, 7 targets, 5 catches, 45 yards. Tennessee gives up yards to wide receivers. I guess they kind of focused a little more on Kirk. That'd be my assumption. Didn't watch this game, so. But Zay Jones with 12 targets, Evan Ingram with 15. I mean, that's 35 or 40% of Trevor Lawrence's targets to one of those 2 men. So
Right.
Jacksonville they are going to be home to take on Dallas. Tennessee travels to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers this week. Anything else from this one? I want to say Jacksonville still has a good chance of winning this division, but we've seen Jacksonville fumble opportunities. No pun intended.
Yeah. They they've shown a lot of promise, but they can't seem to string together 2 solid games. So I'm not sure what's up there. Yeah, I don't know. The usage of ETN is really funky. He came out of college being a good pass catcher and was not involved. He had 0 targets. So I'm not sure what's going on there. The only other thing of note that I guess is more or less kind of amusing, we talked about this in the pre-show, but Evan Ingram went from, what did you say, 15 to number 4 on tight ends for the year, fantasy tight ends, which is just
had a 39-point PPR week.
Yeah, that just speaks to how awful the tight end position is from a fantasy perspective.
He had 21 more points than the tight end too.
Yeah.
I think that's what I heard. and I think that was Okonwu.
Oh,
That's-
really?
I think so. I don't. Kittle wasn't Kelsey.
Oh my God.
Kelsey didn't score a touchdown this week.
Yeah. Is that 2 weeks in a row for Kelsey?
I believe so, but again,
He-
you can't find that really.
Yeah.
I'm now double checking myself.
Yeah, no,
but-
you're correct. Ingram, Okonkwo, Njoku, Knox, Schultz, top 5.
There you go. And 2 of those won't be there next week. Knox and Okonkwo probably won't, but all right, yeah, really good one. We're gonna take our first break. We're gonna come back. We only got a few more games to go over. We're gonna go through the express lane, and then in part 3 of this, we're gonna give you our updated power rankings. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Super Bowl contenders, and then we're gonna have ourselves Thursday and a Friday. I almost said a weekend. That's not true. Taylor, sign us off, would you please? Good sir.
We will see you all on the flip.
Oh, hey, hi, yeah, hi. It's Derek.
Oh, didn't see you there.
Didn't see you there. My name, neighbor.
That just makes
welcome
me
back.
think of real quick. One of my buddies, I think he's done this a couple years in a row, but he does like a little funny Christmas video, and that's how he started off the past couple of ones. It's just like,
Mr. Rogers.
yeah. Oh, didn't see you there.
Hello, neighbor. Would you like to be my friend? Part 2 of the Fantasy Flyer, episode 28. We'll keep going with the Week 14 review. Ravens Steelers is the next game. Ravens win this one 16-14. Basically because Kenny Pickett got hurt. Because the team wasn't. I mean, neither team really did well with their backups. Let's just put it that way. Actually, for the
Yeah.
Ravens, it's their backups backup. Yeah, Ravens at the cost turnovers stay tied in the AFC North with this win. Kenny Pickett and Tyler Huntley started. Neither finished. Both left with respective injuries. Kenny Pickett had a concussion. Tyler Huntley had a dry cleaning appointment. I don't know. I don't
I think
remember
he
why
also
he
had a concussion.
was it another. Okay.
Yes, it was.
So Trubisky comes in and Anthony Brown.
Mhm.
Do I have that? Anthony Brown comes in. Is that really? That's his name?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I did a double take when I first saw it. Yeah. Right. I was like, Antonio Brown? What?
No, that's absolutely. Hold on. We got.
No! God! No! God, please, no!
There we go. So Kenny Pickett leaves. Mitchell Trubisky comes in, and Mitchell Trubisky demonstrates why he's not the starting quarterback anymore.
He was the
Almost-
best player for the Ravens.
He was literally the best player for the Ravens. He had. So here's the thing. Anthony Brown was 3 for 5 in this game. Mitch Trubisky threw 3 interceptions. He had
Mhm.
as many completions to Ravens players as their own quarterback did. That's the scary part of this.
Yeah.
And the sad part is until Pickett completes concussion protocol, Trubisky may be starting again. Mason Rudolph split team 1 reps with Trubisky today, if that makes anyone feel less sick and as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Baltimore has their own problems as well. The Steelers are fighting to get to 500. Okay.
Mhm.
Baltimore is fighting to make the playoffs. So there's a little bit more at stake for Baltimore. The Ravens have much more to lose than Pittsburgh does. If Huntley can't make it back, we don't expect Lamar Jackson to be back this week. You're more likely looking at next week. That means you're looking at Anthony Brown facing the Cleveland Browns this week. Brown versus the Browns. It sounds like a bad 1950s court case. Or good, well, that was a good case, but you know what I mean. It's a court case. It's really what it sounds like. Yeah, Baltimore had less yards, less red zone attempts, less first downs, and won because of the turnover. So if turnovers mean anything to you, Mitchell Trubisky threw all 3 of his interceptions in the red zone. The Steelers red zone. Well, the red zone. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm saying. The Ravens side of the field in the Ravens red zone. Whatever it is. That's the correct phrasing. I'm saying it right now. Everybody ran the ball for Baltimore. They had 309 total yards. 215 of them were on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So as everyone, J.K. Dobbins led the pack. He had 120 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Huntley had 31 rush yards before he left. Who else had some yards? I didn't write them all down.
Gus Edwards has 66. In terms of carries, he was pretty much 50-50 with Dobbins, but Dobbins just had a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Looks like his knee injury is much better than when he last came back. I didn't see all of this game, but I was reading some stuff about it, and it sounds like at one point he looked like he was like taking like stutter steps. So people were like, "Uh-oh, is he still not quite back?" And then the next play, he just like bursts down the field. It was like a long run, like probably his 44-yard run, that may have been the touchdown. But anyways, he seems like he's good to go, locked and loaded.
Oh, it's good to see. Something's going to have to work for that team going
Yeah.
forward, because if you're not going to be able to throw the ball, or if you're going to do it very shyly.
You're right.
Trubisky, 22 for 30, 276 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. That touchdown went to Pat Freiermuth, who had 33 receiving yards on 3 catches and that touchdown. George Pickens, 3 targets, 3 catches, 78 yards. Somebody finally realized you can throw it to the young man. He'll go up and get it. Deontay Johnson, 6 catches on 8 targets, 82 yards. Najee Harris had 33 rush yards, had a pair of receptions, if I recall correctly. His fantasy day was saved by a touchdown against a team it isn't easy to score touchdowns on. So, and they kind of showed it. Those were the only 2 touchdowns, Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth. For Baltimore, Huntley, 8 for 12, 88 yards, 31 on the ground, like I had mentioned. We mentioned J.K. Dobbins. Leading receiver, Demarcus Robinson, 5 catches on 6 targets, 52 yards. Mark Andrews, 2 catches on 6 targets, 17 yards. Devin Duvernay took a huge dip in his snap count. Robinson didn't go up. The majority of snaps that were relieved, I went to a 2 tight end set, and it was not Isaiah Likely.
I was going to say, yeah.
Josh Oliver at 69% of snaps.
This is so cool.
Mark Andrews, 89%. Isaiah Likely, 26% snaps back-to-back weeks after missing week 12. Only 32% week 11. Has not been seeing the field like he was when Mark Andrews was out, obviously. But even before that, he's seen less than he did his first 4 weeks of the season. So I do not know what is going on with Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, I think my guess would be Oliver, more experience with the team, but also as a blocker. And I don't think Likely is quite there yet from a blocking perspective. And as we can see from the box score, and if you watch the game, Baltimore just reverted to the run game, because that was really the only thing they felt they could do, especially with their 3rd string quarterback. So probably having Oliver out there to help block and protect quarterback and running backs was the game plan.
Fair enough. Your guess is better or as good as mine, at least. Pittsburgh travels to Carolina to take on the Panthers. That's a game I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. Baltimore will take on Cleveland. Must win probably for Baltimore. I think just about everything between them and Cincinnati, they both have to like must win from here out, because they're neck and neck for the AFC North. Next game, 49ers and Buccaneers. 49ers win 35-7. Headline in this game, Brady, first player to beat Brady in first career start. San Francisco demolishes Tampa Bay. Didn't need to tell you that if you're familiar with how numbers work, but
They actually they did some comparisons, Birdie and Brady, during the broadcast, just in terms of like numbers and prospect and stuff like that. Obviously being very low drafted.
Both Mr. Irrelevance.
Yeah.
I mean, they should. Purdy's playing pretty well to start off, and he's only going to go up from there. Bucks are doing their damnedest to keep every NFC South team in this race for the division. I mean, they don't even put up a fight in this game, it looked like.
Yeah.
They got run over. Mike Evans has officially left the building. I don't know where he went to. He decides to not catch. I don't know. Doesn't catch the ball. Doesn't get thrown. Doesn't play football. I don't understand. Altogether, Tampa Bay's offense just seems. I mean, I put so bad in this, but they're really like just atrocious. That's a better word. They don't score anymore. How do you have Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans? You have solid tight ends, no matter whether it's Brait or Otten.
Mm-hmm.
You have Leonard Fournette or Rashad White, who are both good. And how? I'm so lost with this team, and it's only frustrating for the fact that we don't know who's going to win the NFC South.
Yeah.
Because it could. Someone was saying, "Oh, Tampa Bay, they imagine them being 6-11 and taking on the Cowboys because that's Cowboys are fifth and they're probably going. The Cowboys lock up with a win this week, they lock up a playoff spot. So if they go ahead and they win, and you end up matching the fourth seed, which would be the Buccaneers, versus the fifth seed, which is at this point is the Cowboys. The Buccaneers can't be they can't win the division if they go 6-11. Just FYI.
Right.
Because they have one game left for each Atlanta and Carolina. Both of those teams are one game behind them. So if you go 6-11, then you've lost the division to one of them. But that's not impressive. Nothing about this Tampa Bay team would be impressive in that stance.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to favor Tom Brady in the postseason because he plays so well in the postseason, but it's not something I really like.
No. This is where I feel like some adjustments could be made. And I know they've made like some of the wild card adjustments, but like if you have such a horrendous division that nobody has a winning like record and you have
Right.
somebody else in another division that's for
Right.
instance like NFC East has the 12-1 Eagles and the 10-3 Cowboys. Like obviously that in this particular like the NFC, they should both make it, but still if you have two divisions like that, this division, the South, nobody should be in the playoffs. You don't want to see these teams in the playoffs. You want more excitement. That's what the playoffs are about. And you're gonna throw a
I mean,
team
you
like
might
the
get
Bucks.
excitement
Yeah, from headlines, but yeah,
from blowouts. Um, for San Francisco, their offense is still cranking. I mean, they may have lost Debo for some time, but Purdy still looks good. And hopefully Purdy can play against Seattle tomorrow. If they make the playoffs, the only thing I can think is Tom is going to have his work cut out for him. Tampa Bay looks like the shakiest team in the NFC playoffs. And it's also worth noting, like I said, Tampa Bay plays Cincinnati this week, which the way those two teams are going, Cincinnati should have a good handle on the game.
Mm-hmm.
Good. The best part of their team right now has been their defense because they're just stopping everything. Carolina plays Pittsburgh. Carolina can win that game. They just beat the Seahawks. So now you're tied.
Right.
Assuming that goes that way, could be tied. Tampa Bay plays Carolina week 17, Atlanta week 18. Things in the NFC South could be interesting. And by interesting, I mean interesting like it's like a car wreck. Things hurt, but you can't not watch it.
Yeah.
Going into week 18. And that could be the only division that's really left. I don't see any other division that's close to. I don't know who's going to win it. Like you don't know who's going to win the AFC North, but chances are both teams are probably going to make the playoffs. They're both 9-4 right now. So I don't know. Tom Brady, 34 for 55, had a touchdown, 2 interceptions. I didn't write his yardage, and I don't know why.
253.
Sure, there you go. Chris Godwin, 9 targets, 5 catches, 54 yards. Rashad White had 5 targets and 21 yards, also had 56 rush yards. Leonard Fournette had 6 catches, but ran less. Am I correct?
Yeah, 6 catches, 4 carries.
Okay. Lovely stuff. He's being used basically in the pass game. That's it. I don't know. For San Francisco, Brock Purdy, 16 for 21, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, 14 carries, 119 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 catches for 34 yards, a touchdown in the air as well. Brandon Ayuk, 2 catches on 3 targets, 57 yards and a tutty. George Kittle, 5 targets, 4 catches, 28 yards. Kind of a disappointing result because he had 3 catches for 36, I believe. No, less than that. 3 catches for 24. Something like that, going into like halftime. But not even halftime. Might have been the second quarter. He had 2 catches early on. And I was like, oh, well, he's about to blow off my expectations. Like I just said, Kittle can't really be trusted, and then you can't. San Francisco plays Seattle on Thursday Night Football. Tampa Bay, as I mentioned earlier, is playing Cincinnati this week. At least they're at home for that. So I imagine Cincinnati will probably only be 3 or 4 point favorites.
Yeah.
Anything else for you from this one? I hate the NFC South.
Yeah. I mean, once Debo went out, Ayuk definitely got a bump and obviously did well with the usage. And then also Jordan Mason, 11 carries, 56 yards. Not anything to sort of, yeah, to definitely pay attention to that. If you have Christian McCaffrey going into the fantasy playoffs, definitely stag Jordan Mason if he's available. Seems capable if McCaffrey's out.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Panthers, Seahawks, and then we're going to preview Thursday Night Football very briefly. Because the Seahawks lost this game, which this makes tomorrow night's game against San Francisco paramount. San Francisco with the injuries should not be the favorite going in and they are. And it's fair if they are. Panthers 30, Seahawks 24. Headline: Seattle loses costly game. Carolina stays in NFC South fight. This is another one of those games for Carolina where they have no business winning it, but they tough it out.
Yeah.
They have absolutely no business leading this game in any fashion. Seattle had turnovers that hurt their time on the field, just all in general. Geno had his lowest completion percentage of the year at 58%. So his season total going into the game was 72%. So
yeah,
that's, every 6 passes, another one was incomplete or something of that line. They had 2 interceptions. Carolina had they won the time of possession by a mile, 39 minutes to 21 minutes. Seattle, we saw it with the Commanders versus the Eagles. We saw it in Minnesota when they played Buffalo. Time of possession matters. Like, it matters a lot. 21-39 is almost exactly what the Commanders beat the Eagles with. I think it was 40-20 in that game. If you're keeping them off the field, they can't score. Like it's hard to have them. Carolina controlled the ball. They won the turnover battle. They won the game. It's that simple. Carolina offense was not amazing at any point, but they had so much time. It's the same way that Washington beat Philadelphia. If you are churning it out at 3 yards of play, you're going to be, or 3.5 yards of play. You stay on the field for 40 minutes of the game. You get downfield and you have 10 and 12 minute drives, and they don't have time. They just don't have time. Almost 1 yard per play less than Seattle here. Huge blow, to Seattle's chances in the playoffs. Like I said, this game, I put Sunday. They're not playing on Sunday. They're playing on Thursday. But it's paramount. You lose this game to an interdivision rival who is already a game up. It's over. Go to week 16. It is effectively over.
Yeah.
Geno Smith, 21 for 26, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The leading receiver for Seattle was Marquise Goodwin, 5 catches on 6 targets, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Lockett, 5 catches on 9 targets, 60 yards, and a touchdown. DK Metcalf, 5 catches on 10 targets, 71 yards, and a touchdown. There's a theme here. Carolina, Sam Darnold, 14 for 24, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Not great numbers. DJ Moore had worse numbers. He had 3 targets, didn't catch anything. He goose-egged the day.
He did have some sort of injury on the day, but he's no longer on the injury report, so seems like it wasn't anything crazy.
You suck, you jackass.
Chuba Hubbard, 14 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Had 3 catches for 25 yards. Dante Foreman had 21 carries for 64.
74. They both had 74
74.
yards.
74. Wow. Oop, I typed this in wrong. I knew they had the same number, and I was like, man, that doesn't. I feel like there's a 7 involved, and I wrote 64 instead of 74. Laviska Shenault, 4 catches on 4 targets, 31 yards. There's a few other spread the ball moments, but most of this was short field attempts for Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up holding the ball for more and more time and letting the clock run. And I mean, Seahawks lost a time game than anything else. Seattle against San Francisco Thursday Night Football. Carolina against Pittsburgh, which we've mentioned a couple times in Carolina. That game is. Anything else from this game before we talk about Thursday Night Football real quick?
I mean, Seattle just couldn't do anything from a running perspective, which obviously hurts the offense when you're basically only throwing the ball, and that's where the defense can focus their efforts. So hopefully Kenneth Walker coming back and hopefully being healthy will help Seattle. Looks like I know Foreman had some injury stuff coming into this week, but Chuba Hubbard, not as many carries, same amount of yards, got the touchdown, and was more involved in the passing game. This is either a true 50-50 or maybe Hubbard
Sway.
is, maybe it's swaying towards
Starting to see the
Hubbard.
sway. Yeah. Interesting to note that as far as Kenneth Walker coming back, that leads me very well into our Thursday night preview. San Francisco is the number 1 rush defense. They allow less than 75 yards per game to the rush attack on average. Kenneth Walker is a good running back. I don't like his chances. Geno Smith has been slipping. Like we said, he had his lowest completion percentage this week. He's had 4 interceptions his last 2 weeks, including this game against the Panthers. You can't do that against San Francisco. They will bite you. Brock Purdy or not, Debo or not. Christian McCaffrey should be the back. I mean, and I'm not saying that because he's the number 1 back in fantasy over the last 4 weeks. I'm saying that because this team, the Seahawks team, can't stop a run.
Yeah.
They gave up 150 yards between Hubbard and Foreman, a bunch of catches in the air. Now you're looking at the person who does it the best, and Christian McCaffrey. He should be a very pivotal part. George Kittle, start him. This is a good game for him. If there's one time where he can prove me wrong, it's against the 31st ranked team versus tight ends, giving up an average of 11 points per game to tight ends. This could be a 20 spot for him easy. 6 catches, 7 catches, 50 or 60 yards, throw a touchdown in there, be happy because especially if Debo's out.
Right.
Another small name to point out with Debo out, probably Ray McLeod or Juwan Jennings. You're dart throwing them. I wouldn't trust a lot in them, but if Purdy throws for 30 times again, they'll get a couple targets. One of them will. So Brandon Ayuk has to be an absolute ceiling game. You know who to trust out of Seattle. You know who to trust. It's Metcalf. It's Lockett. Lockett has a touchdown 6 straight weeks now. Metcalf has a touchdown in 5 of his last 7. Why not? Also, good point to note, going back to the Panthers and Seahawks game, Travis Homer I didn't mark down because Travis Homer did nothing. I think we talked about it on Friday's show where Homer was going to be the starting back, but who do you like more out of the backs? Do you like Tony Jones? Do you like DJ Dallas if he plays? Do you like Travis Homer? And my response was, they will be there, but I like the wide receivers more.
Yeah.
And that was with the 2 interceptions. That was the case. So if there's anything San Francisco getting vertical with some of these guys, maybe. I mean, DK Metcalf is a physical wide receiver at times. I don't think you're going to really enjoy Noah Fant or Will Dissly this week. I think Seattle has their work cut out for them tomorrow, but it is all in all an important game if they can find a way to win. And this may be the exact opposite. This may be the game plan we just saw the Panthers do to them. This may be what they need to do. Like win the time of possession and not even close. Like 36, 37 minutes to 23. Keep San Francisco, keep Christian McCaffrey off the field. March it slowly. Kenneth Walker can still create plays. If Walker has 80 or 90 or more yards and they can run the clock a little bit, this will be a little closer game. If not, and again, assuming Purdy is still playing as well as he is, his
Right.
mistakes are bound to come. This isn't necessarily the team I'd expect it to be against, but is there really a team that it could not happen against? No. So, what are your thoughts on this 49ers and Seahawks battle? Because I like it. It's for once, congratulations to Amazon. You have an entertaining Thursday night football game.
Right. Yeah. Assuming Walker's back, it should be pretty entertaining. Obviously, we saw like what could happen to Seattle without a solid running game here. But I guess the biggest thing is like San Francisco has a very good defense, especially against the running game. So it's going to be tough for Seattle. Assuming Purdy's there, San Francisco's offense should be okay, and it's easy to put up points against or to do damage yardage wise against Seattle. So
Right.
I don't see Seattle winning this, but Gino has proved us wrong. He's been able to make things happen against good teams. So at the very least, Seattle can move the ball and put up some points. So they may be able to do some damage against a tough San Francisco defense, but San Francisco is the by far more well-rounded team, even without Debo and Garoppolo.
Yeah. They have the most yards per point in the NFL by a mile over the last 3 games. They are making teams work for that. 37 yards per point.
Damn.
That's a lot. That's
Yeah.
so if a touchdown is 6 points, that means they're making teams drive the field 3 times before they score. That's problematic.
Yeah.
Either way, I actually might pay attention to that game if I can. I might sneak it on the Reddit streams or something tomorrow night because it looks like it could be a little juicy.
Yeah.
Last game we're going to talk about in depth will be the Sunday night football game, Chargers and Dolphins. Dolphins lose this one 17-23. Headline: pass game not enough for Miami. Chargers outperform, and that's on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Chargers had a fantastic all-around game. They had the defense stepped up. They squandered Tyreek Hill for much of the first half. Tua started off 1 for 6 in this game, and they turned in 2 drives that ended in 3 and outs. Not great. I don't know where the play calling was to not try and run the ball more, because once they started to run the ball, it didn't work. It was just kind of like, we're there and we're ready.
Yeah.
Tua had this was his worst start as a Dolphins quarterback. There was no offensive cohesion. Waddle wasn't involved enough again. Like, I don't know what the thought process is for that. I don't really get it at all. But no run game. Surprise against the Chargers team that's very forgiving against the run. There's several key defensive injuries for the Chargers. It's not like this was their A team. Derwin James was out. Who were the other? There's 3 players that were out, and it was all massive. And I can't remember who they are. I know one of them was Derwin James, which in and of itself is a problem enough. But they managed to slow down one of the more powerful offenses. Miami was 3-11 on third downs, only had 127 passing yards, 145 if you don't count the sacks. 49 total plays, total of 14 first downs. The offense was just hurting. It was absolutely hurting.
Yeah.
And the Chargers weren't amazing on offense, but they did plenty. This win for the Chargers, they inch a little closer to the playoffs. Miami slides a little down the AFC. With Buffalo winning, they separate themselves in the AFC East. Gives Buffalo, I think, a little bit of breathing room, really, which is something Miami couldn't really afford. And then now it makes a win by Buffalo on Saturday versus Miami basically division ceiling. Tua 10 for 28, the 145 yards, sacked twice for 18 yards. We had 1 touchdown. Raheem Mostert 11 carries for 37 yards. They ain't gonna do it. Tyreek Hill 4 catches on 10 targets, 81 yards and a touchdown. Waddle 2 catches. I wrote 34, but that's probably 4 targets.
Yeah, 4 targets.
Okay, good. I can make up my mind later. 2 catches and 4 targets, 31 yards. For the Chargers, Herbert, 39 for 51, 367 yards and a touchdown. He is the fastest player to 13,000 passing yards through 3 seasons.
Jesus.
Eckler, 15 carries, 45 yards and a rushing touchdown. Also caught all 8 of his targets for 59 yards. Mike Williams, man, what did I tell you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, this man came
Did
back.
not limit him at all.
They didn't limit him in everything they threw. They threw the kitchen sink, 3 elves, Santa Claus, the sleigh, and 2 partridges and a pear tree at him.
Yeah.
He caught all of it. 6 for 6, 116 yards and a touchdown. He had an amazing not over the shoulder, but he had an amazing grab along the sideline. It was in the first quarter. It was like one of his first catches. And it was slightly behind him. And I knew at that point, I was like, they ain't limiting this man. It was like 25 or 30 yards downfield on the sideline. He's got the receiver beat. He's underthrown. As he turns around, he realizes it. And he jumps up and he like windmills around the defender, catches the ball. Like there's something crazy. I was like, and it was on Xavier Howard too, which is even
Oh,
more.
really?
Yeah, because Xavier Howard is nothing to sneeze at. He's a great cornerback. Keenan Allen, 12 catches on 14 targets for 92 yards. Gerald Everett, 5 catches on 8 targets for 28 yards. Miami versus Buffalo, one of the Saturday games. Chargers will be at home versus the Titans. Good win for the Chargers, needed. Miami, crucial loss. It's getting down to crunch time, and this is one of the games where you look at when you end up playing. I mean, if you slide down to 6th or 7th, you end up playing the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
This is a game that can lead you to a first-round exit if you're not careful. Because your other option is, if it's not going to be the Bills, it's going to be the Chiefs.
Right.
Do you really want to play? It'll be super interesting if you see Tyreek Hill versus the Chiefs in Week 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second. But okay, I'm back. Ignore me. My computer just spazzed for like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
But if Miami ends up, that'd be a great first round. But I don't see them beating the Chiefs or the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that they can't do it, but they are not having Waddle involved like they did in the beginning of the season. I don't know what's going on there, but when they had Hill and Waddle going for close to 150 and each getting a touchdown, like they were obviously that in itself is like a lot that's 300 yards for a QB, which is not obviously the league average. So
Right.
they got to figure out what I don't know what happened, but they're not moving the ball like they were.
No, not at all. So we're going to do a little bit of the express lane now, and we're going to do a little bit in part 3. We got about 7 minutes, so I'm going to see if I can get through at least 2 games here. First game in the express lane. Actually, we're not going to get through 2 games because I got to yell about my Cowboys second. So we're going to have a little bit of a chit chat. Cowboys end up winning this game 27-23. Okay. This is the Texans, the now 110-1 Texans, or 111-1 now. One of the two. I don't know. But this is why I'm worried about the Cowboys, because this didn't have as much trap game feel as the Colts, but they didn't have answers for some of the things that the Texans were doing. They won this game, but they took a step back in my book, and that's saying somebody. The Dallas defense was not aggressive. The Dallas offense was not crisp until like the last drive, which points to Dak. The last drive was on target, 6 for 6, led him down the field, 98 yards. Zeke powers in, touchdown, leaves him 41 seconds to get downfield. Not happening. And it almost did happen, I should say, but it did. Any game like this in the playoffs, they're eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Any game. I see a lot of the memes on social media and all that stuff that say, oh, it's our year, it's our year. No, I've never once sat on this show as a Cowboys fan and been like, this is our year. And this is why, knowing the Cowboys, have been a fan for over a decade and a half, I see this every year. There is a game, if not 2, if not 7, where they look like They have no idea how to run the offense. They have no idea how to beat an offensive line and get to the quarterback. And especially when they are the number 1 or number 2 or number 4 ranked pressure defense to quarterbacks, when you can't do that against a team that is really bad, it is a shining hole in the logic of them being a really, really good team. Dak is, I mean, he didn't have a good game either. All in all, 24 for 39, 284 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 2 horrible interceptions. One came out of his own end zone. It was tipped actually at the line, but either way, shouldn't have thrown it. They should be running from the 3-yard line. Why? Because you can run on the Texans. The announcers were sitting there saying, you the first drive of the game, you ran down the field, scored, which they've only scored on 2 other opening drives this season. This is the 3rd one they do. Zeke runs for 50 yards on the first drive, and they stop running the ball.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Run it down their throat. Like, I didn't understand it. And Zeke was okay after that. Pollard was fine, did wonderfully, but they lost sight of how to beat the team. They tried to beat them their own way instead of beating them the way every other team has done, other than Nick Chubb and his bad game last week. And maybe the Texans are sharpening up their rush defense finally. I don't know. We saw the Chargers kind of do it last week too. Seen some of these teams kind of become a little bit better. Detroit. It's the time of the year where that happens, but you have to adapt to those and to play their changes. If you play to your own changes, they're going to hone in more, and you could see it. You could just see it. So Houston is trying hard to squander their own. I don't think they wanted to win this game because they want a new quarterback. So
Right.
Zeke has scored a touchdown in every game he's played since week 6. It's important to note that. Zeke, 15 carries, 62 yards and a touchdown, also 3 catches for 19 yards. Pollard had 42 rush yards, 4 catches, 20 yards, touchdown in the air. Dalton Schultz, 6 catches for 87 yards. Davis Mills, 16 for 21, 175 yards, had 1 interception. Damian Pierce had 78 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Chris Moore, 10 catches, 124 yards. Don't know where the secondary was on that one. Amari Rodgers, 4 catches, 57 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks has been speculated to go in the offseason. Like, the Texans will get a bag of Skittles for him in return. I don't know if he will be playing much the rest of the year because it does not look like he wants to. The Texans, I don't think, are real happy with him. All kind of speculation, but that's where I imagine that you are going to see a lot more Chris Moore and Amari Rodgers and Philip Dorsett. And the most promise of those for next year is probably Chris Moore or Amari Rodgers. That's just the youth of Amari Rodgers. He's now, his snap count this week, I just had it up and I lost it. So let me pull that back up for 2 seconds. He had 55% snap, 80% for Dorsett and Moore. So all 3 are serviceable for dart throws going forward. Dallas is in Jacksonville to hopefully rebound. Houston will take on Kansas City, and I dare say Kansas City doesn't lose that game, but we just saw what happened, so hell if I know. They did lose to the Colts earlier this year, and the Colts and the Texans tied in week 1, so who knows? Anything you want to point out from this game? Because I'm a little frustrated despite the win. Like, a win is a win, but that's an ugly win.
Yeah. No, it was an ugly win. And I mean, if not for that final drive with Dak performing under pressure, the Texans have this. I mean, to your point, I don't know why they didn't run the ball more, but also CeeDee was not as involved. Schultz had 10 targets and CeeDee Lamb had 6. I mean, 3 other receivers, Brown, Gallup, CeeDee, all had 6 targets. And CeeDee Lamb was last on that list in terms of yards. So
they didn't factor him in game plan. They didn't.
Yeah, which is funky. Maybe the Texans also helped, or were decent at trying to phase him out or, cover him, but I can't say that the Texans are that amazing in their secondary. So I don't know. That was definitely
Yeah.
weird.
Also, shout out to the Dallas defense that stopped the Texans after the final turnover in the red zone, stopped a 4th down, 4 straight plays, and then marched at 98 yards. So we're going to take our final break. We're going to finish up the express lane and do our power rankings in segment 3. Taylor, sign us off, sir.
We will see you all on the other side.
Don't
Welcome back. It is part 3. Time for the special. It is the football mating call. I don't know. That's not funny. That's pretty gay, actually. Just saying. We'll keep going with our express lane. Next game, Chiefs 34, Broncos 28. Quick overview. Mahomes hit a bit of a wall in terms of the Denver defense, but Denver came in firing on their own. Jerry Jeudy had himself quite the game here. He continues to have a great record against Kansas City. I don't know what it is. Jerick McKinnon also had an immaculate game as well. So much for fading away, right? Remember what I said that? Yeah, that was wrong. Broncos were out of this until they scored 21 points in a 4-minute span. That helps. Mahomes had 4, I think it's 3 turnovers, not 4. But when Wilson left, Denver kind of slowed their pace. Wilson left with a concussion, still in concussion protocol. Interesting. I think Wilson leaving actually they lost their chance to win this game. Only losing by 6 points. They were doing fairly well. Mahomes 28 for 42, 352 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Jerick McKinnon 7 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown. Juju 9 catches, 74 yards and a touchdown. For Denver, Russell Wilson 23 for 37, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. All 3 of those touchdowns went to Jerry Jeudy to go along with 8 catches and 73 yards. Special note to Marlon Mack, 2 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. So Mike Boone played 11% of snaps in this game. Those will probably be split between Latavius Murray and Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack saw 35%, 32% of snaps. So I see him closer to 40 and Murray 60.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, Mac more involved in the receiving game. He had 2 receptions for 62 yards with his longest 66 yards. So 1 for 66 and another one for -4. But
yeah, still a piece of the run game, but not as much as Murray.
Yeah.
Kansas City travels to Houston. Denver is at home to take on Arizona next week in a game I don't want anything to do with. Next game, Bills 20, Jets 12. Overview. It was a slow first half. No one scored until there's like 2 minutes to go in the half. So it's pretty bad. The Bills offense was slow. Jets offense was just as slow, even though I guess it really peaked at that point and never really recovered. Josh Allen found his balance after a couple sloppy drives. Only threw for 147 yards. Offense wasn't dominating, but it was serviceable. Josh Allen was the leading rusher. Devin Singletary, no. James Cook, no. Could have left just about everybody on your fantasy sideline, and you wouldn't have really cried about it. Jets lose again. They're starting to fall out of like playoff likelihood at this point. It's getting rough for them with the Dolphins and Patriots looking halfway decent now. It's the AFC East is pretty competitive. I won't lie.
Yeah.
Zonovan Knight, still a good RB. Only actually got outsnapped by Michael Carter, which is kind of crazy because Zonovan Knight was a mile more efficient. I don't know if that was decoy reasons. It was 47 to 50% in terms of Zonovan Knight to Carter, but Zonovan Knight was a very good running back here. Elijah Moore poked his head out of the ground as like a groundhog, had himself a good day. Garrett Wilson did his usual thing. 268 yards passing from Mike White, but the Jets only scored 1 touchdown. And that won't win a lot of games. So
No.
big New York Jet issues in red zone conversion. White, 27 for 44 for those 268 yards. Zonovan Knight, 71 rush yards, 1 touchdown. Also had a pair of catches, I believe. 2 for 6.
Yes.
Nothing special, but the White and Knight connection there. There we go. Wilson, 6 catches for 78 yards. Elijah Moore, 6 catches for 60 yards. For Buffalo, Allen was 16 for 27, 147 yards. Touchdown on the ground, touchdown in the air. Dawson Knox caught his touchdown pass, 4 catches for 41 for him. Stephon Diggs, 3 catches for 37 yards. Buffalo takes on Miami on Saturday. Jets are at home to take on the Lions, which will be interesting to see because we know Jared Goff has not been very good under pressure, and the Jets create pressure naturally. So this will be, I like that matchup actually a lot more than probably many folks do. Next game, Bengals and Browns. Bengals 23, Browns 10. Bengals were sloppy at times. Started off a little harsh, but they made it work. Burrow was solid. Cincinnati's defense focused on Nick Chubb, and it worked. Nick Chubb hasn't been amazing at any.
Oh, we lost you.
Nick Chubb has not been very good of recent, like last 8 games. Kind of been falling off the bandwagon. Got 3 turnover on downs. Cincinnati did to get this win. 0 for 3 on 4th downs were the Browns. Not great. Donovan Peoples-Jones, very good game. 8 catches, 114 yards. For Cincinnati, the issue wasn't really losing a wide receiver. Jamar Chase had a great game. Boyd and Higgins left in this one. Trent Irwin came up out of nowhere once again. Sure. It was a good win for the Bengals. The Browns, I guess I would say they are who we thought they were. It's prepare for next season. Try again next year, Deshaun. For Cleveland, Watson, 26 for 42, 276 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Nick Chubb, 34 rush yards. Won't get it done. He has not scored more than 80. He's not had more than 80 rush yards in 5 of his last 8 games. Yeah, won't work. Mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. For Cincinnati, Burrow, 18 for 33, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jamar Chase had 10 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. Mixon had 96 yards on the ground. Trenton Irwin had a pair of catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. Samaje Perine had a rush touchdown. Cincinnati's getting their scoring from all over the place. They will travel to Tampa Bay. Cleveland will take on Baltimore in Cleveland. Next game, Eagles and Giants. I really shouldn't have to talk too much about this one. It went about exactly the way we thought it was going to. Eagles won it easily. Giants have no way of keeping up with this team. Philadelphia did not commit turnovers. Jones couldn't keep drives going. Saquon was held up. They couldn't score. The Giants couldn't score. There's so many good opportunities in the rush game for Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts. I said it on Friday's show of the tiny little fact about Boston Scott having half his career touchdowns against the Giants. Well, he had another one. So Giants have so many opportunities to get better in the offseason, but in reality, I think health is going to be one of them besides getting wide receivers. And I don't know if they're going to bring Daniel Jones back. I'm so 50-50 on it. That's why I traded him away. The defense for the Giants is good when it's healthy. It's just never healthy. Azeez Ojulari and Leonard Williams and Hurts, 21 for 31, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also ran for a touchdown on 77 rush yards. Miles Sanders, 144 rush yards and 2 touchdowns. Boston Scott had 33 rush yards and a touchdown. A.J. Brown had a touchdown in the air on 4 catches, 70 yards. Devontae Smith had a touchdown and 5 catches for 64 yards. I'm pretty sure Nick Sirianni had a touchdown here. Just about everybody did. For the Giants, Daniel Jones, 18 for 27, 168 yards, touchdown on the ground, touchdown in the air. Tyrod Taylor came in to close out the game because why not?
Yeah.
He was 5 for 5, 47 yards and a touchdown. Saquon, 2 catches for 20 yards, 28 yards on the ground. They're not using the man.
Tyrod Taylor had more rushing yards than Saquon Barkley.
He led the team 40 yards, right? 40-something yards?
Yeah.
Yeah. Richie James, 7 catches for 61 yards, had a touchdown. Isaiah Hodgins, 4 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. He's looking promising. I will say that for him. Philadelphia travels to Chicago this week. Sunday Night Football is where the Giants will be playing next. They will be in Washington. Next and last game on the Express Lane, Cardinals and Patriots. Arizona, like we mentioned in the 9 segment, they lost Kyler Murray on the second or third play of the game. And from there, it didn't look good. He didn't, and it was almost like foreshadowing the rest of the game. In comes Colt McCoy after that injury, and I literally put in our notes, ... Oh dear. Injuries all over played a part in this game. Ramondre Stevenson, Devontae Parker, John Jones, the rookie for the Patriots, they all left with injuries. New England eventually walked away with it after a fumble recovery touchdown. Shout out to Robbie Anderson. It seems like whenever we bring up somebody's name, they do things.
Right.
You notice, right? Like Robbie Anderson has 4 catches for 50 yards in this game. Boston Scott has a touchdown after not being seen at all this year. Like, a good win for the Patriots, though. I mean, this was a game you can't afford to lose. So, good job not losing it, I guess. I mean, you got help because of the injury to Kyler. Kyler tore an ACL, gone for the year. Will probably miss roughly the first half of next year. Probably won't get much of his mobility back until the end of next year or the year after. So it's a rough injury for Kyler and for Cardinals fans. For the stats section, Mac Jones 24 for 35 with an interception. How many yards did he have? Because I didn't write that either, like an idiot.
235.
235. Pierre Strong 70 rush yards and a touchdown. Kevin Harris had 8 carries for 26 yards. He had a touchdown on the ground. I would think Pierre Strong, if Harris and if Damian Harris is out, and name that Harris. If Damian Harris is out and Ramondre Stevenson is out, I would think Pierre Strong would be your go-to. I also bid $5 on him, and you won him over.
Oh,
me
really?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the 3rd running back you've taken from me, so you might wake up with me under your bed. Just saying.
Real quick
Son of a
on those
Night was another
two.
one. Hmm?
That was Son of a Night was another one. Real
Yeah.
quick on Strong and Kevin Harris. I also like Kevin Strong better, but Harris had more snap percentage, and I think he was the first one that went out onto the field. So I'm not quite sure what to say, but Strong was the higher draft pick and did better with his opportunity.
Okay. Yeah. I don't. I'll still. I think Strong has more depth going into next season too. So specifically for our
Exactly.
league, that was a good pickup. But you still picked him up over me, and that means
That guy's ruining a perfectly good game of football.
yeah, ruining it.
Yeah.
Ruining it.
Well, I had the money, so why not?
Yeah, I should have. And I had. The sad part is, I had a bet on him at $7 earlier today, and I backed it down to 5 because I don't know if Steven's going to miss, and I didn't want to sink that much money into him if it was going to be.
I
Yeah,
was
anyway.
annoyed, and honestly, you should probably double check me on this. I was annoyed because I had him for $1 early in the season. I'm pretty sure the 30-day window had gone over, but double check me. Maybe I shouldn't have picked him up.
Well, you couldn't have. It's all right. I'm almost positive. 30 days ago, 30 days ago we had we were after the trade deadline special. Like we're deep into it now. I mean, I'm pretty sure you dropped him in like October. I'm not gonna lie.
Something like that.
For Arizona, I didn't even finish New England. Excuse me. Hunter Henry 3 catches for 70 yards. Kendrick Bourne 5 catches for 47 yards. For Arizona, Colt McCoy 27 for 40, 246 yards and an interception. Technically, that means he was about as good as Mac Jones, which is the scary part. But it also helps when you have DeAndre Hopkins. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
And apparently Robbie Anderson. James Conner, 85 rush yards and a touchdown. Also had 6 catches for 29 yards. Hopkins, 7 catches for 79 yards. We mentioned Robbie Anderson's 4 catches for 50. Arizona is in Denver. New England is at Las Vegas this week. Anything else you want to add for any of those games before we wrap up the express lane?
No. I mean, there's a reason they're in the express lane. They were what we expected out of them. So
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of them were closer, or like the Broncos Chiefs game was a little closer. Cowboys Texans was a little closer than we thought, but the results, they stand. At the end of the
Yeah.
year, all you see is a record. So
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, and my
Wilson-
hurt soul for Cowboys fans.
Yeah, right. Russell Wilson, just when you kind of written that team off, he finally does something. I'm not gonna buy into it, but
At
I
some
don't
point,
know.
we're going to have to. That's the
Right.
scary part. The team can't get worse. They literally, it's almost physically impossible for that team to get worse with the people they have on it.
Mm.
Real quick, we'll update. There now done all of the Week 14 review. We'll update our 5 fantasy flyer and host v host scoring. We both got Cincinnati as the winner in that game. Neither one of us got Pittsburgh over Baltimore. Injuries helped that one. Neither one of us got Seattle or Carolina. So 0 points for those. You won by, I didn't math it out. I literally eyed it because you had Okonkwo and Zonovan Knight, who both had 17 and 15 respectively. Elijah Moore had 12 for me. Nick Westbrook-Akina had 11, but all in all, I think you got me by about 8 points for the fantasy flyers. 177 to 173 is the host v host standings.
Hot
So
damn.
you are up by 4.
All right.
Funny. We've battled back.
This is a good battle towards the end here.
That's right. But that brings us to the important part of part 3 of our power rankings. This is the third of 4 power ranking segments. Fourth will be after week 18. But it's important to know.
Because this is more power.
If you can tell me what show that's from, you'll get $1. I'll give you a hint. It's Tim Allen.
Oh, was it? Okay. I didn't recognize his voice.
It's Home Improvement. So
Yep.
you don't get $1. You owe me $1.
That was so I don't remember you saying that.
It was in the fine print. You just did. Fantasy Flyer updated power rankings. I went back and I tried to find our second iteration of it, and I have the thumbnail for it. And when I click into that episode, there's no power rankings.
Uh-oh.
So I was okay, I can't really base it off of that one, but I think I can put together a pretty accurate list. So we'll start off. We're going to list the top 5 for all 4 of the fantasy positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And I was originally going to stick to the bottom 5 and the top 5 teams. And I listed the top 10 and the bottom 7. And I realized that I'm already over halfway done. So you're going to get our entire power rankings order from teams wise from 32 to 1. But we will
Buckle
start.
up.
Yeah, we're going in heavy. We'll start with the quarterback position. Our quarterback 1, we could probably go back and forth, but I think the most common consensus at this point is Jalen Hurts. He doesn't always throw for 350 yards. He doesn't always rush for 120, but the team wins, and he's good whichever way he goes. He has the tools around him. He has the coaching around him, the play calling. He seems to be much more of a consensus MVP than he was 4 weeks ago. Patrick Mahomes just had a 3 interception game, granted against a good defense, but there's certain things that lead me to believe that he should be the 1 over Mahomes at 2. I don't think there's much of a disagreement from you. I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, no. I think, in my opinion, Hertz is by far the number 1.
Okay, that's, you say by far, so you're going way above. Also, I mean, the Chiefs, did they lose last week? Or am I imagining that?
No. Last week. Yeah, they may have.
Help me out and check that.
Yeah.
Because obviously the Eagles, they've only lost once to the Commanders.
They did. That was the Bengals game.
Right. Okay. So that's why that's a team that's a little thorn in the side of Mahomes. So he's number 2. Number 3 was actually someone who I overlooked entirely when I made this list, and you pointed it out that he probably should be there. And upon looking and the feeling of it, Justin Herbert is our 3. I mentioned the team isn't amazing. They're just above 500. They've also been scattered with some injuries, both defensively and in the wide receiver position. I don't know if we all remember the 4 weeks they didn't have Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. They do give up some bad plays defensively, but we're not talking about the defense. We're talking about the quarterback. And Herbert is a monster when he throws the ball. He's played through some injuries this year. I don't hate their schedule the rest of the way out. Actually, I kind of like it. Pretty nice, easy strength of schedule. So if you're looking for a little bit more passing, you may go with our number 4, who is Joe Burrow. A little bit more receiving, actually. But even now, Joe Burrow at 4 has, we don't know the outcome of T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. So you may be facing a similar situation with Cincinnati that you are or were facing with the Chargers. Chargers remaining schedule. If I can scroll and not be dumb about things. Titans, Colts, Rams, Broncos. So really only one team in there that's threatening, and that'll be against the Broncos. So like the rest of their schedule, good for them. I'm putting Justin Herbert at 3. Number 4, Joe Burrow. Number 5 was a toss-up. I went with Tua, who last 2 games he's been rough. Obviously, this one against the Chargers, big step back. 145 yards, 10 for 28, not great. The week before against San Francisco, 2 interceptions that were costly. Team was in it for a little bit, though. So still has the amazing tandem wide receivers of Hill and Waddle. The running game is not as involved in this with this team as it should be, but that's not on Tua. That's a play calling issue. And when you put a lot of a load on somebody, sometimes eventually they're going to grumble a little bit. So I don't hold that so much with Tua. Number 6 was Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen has been slowly on the slight teeter. The team really has not. That's fine. Josh Allen still rushes. He still throws. I don't hate anyone who argues Allen should be ahead of Tua. I think strength of schedule wise, they're pretty even. They're not horribly imbalanced. They play each other this weekend, which last time they played each other, Tua had like 16 completions and 150 yards, but the Dolphins won. And Josh Allen had like 300 and some yards, and then the Bills lost. So it's interesting to see how that dynamic works, but we're seeing it all over the place now. So one of those things where the Dolphins defense beat the Bills defense, which has been 2 of their 3 losses this year have been because their defense got outplayed by the opposing defense. So those are the top 5 quarterbacks for me. Again, if you're going to put Josh Allen in 5th, you're not going to hear a peep out of me. He's still, fantasy wise, he's the QB3. So do you hate it? No. Obviously, for record standpoint, if you're going to argue that, that's fine. I would tell you that I think the Bills have had a hair of an easier schedule, but all in all, it comes down to what's at the end of the day. So what are your thoughts? Where are you going for our power rankings? You looked over these, so I assume for the most part you're in agreement.
Yeah, I think, like you said, for me, it would be Josh Allen over Tua. So, but you obviously don't have much of a, you're not going to argue that too much. I guess the biggest thing I would say is Allen, and his rushing adds to his floor / upside.
Yeah, especially in a fantasy, and that's a valid point. Tua probably should be running more. Somebody on that team should be. Why not Tua? So, because it's really not Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert like they should be. So for the top 5 for running backs, anyway, moving along. RB1, Christian McCaffrey. Can you say any more? Like 6 to 10 targets a game, 12 to 20 carries, anywhere between 7 and 100 yards on the ground. He's going to catch a touchdown or run a touchdown in from somewhere. Austin Eckler is our RB2, kind of like Christian McCaffrey light. Going to get somewhere between 5 and 8 targets a game. Going to run it for 40 or 50 yards, and he'll probably run a touchdown or get a touchdown in there somewhere. After that, it can get a little shaky. Not noted in this top 5 will be Nick Chubb for the aforementioned. 5 of his last 8 games, he's not had more than 80 yards. One of those games he did hit 80. That's not more than 80. That is 80. So I will note that. He's been blocked up a little bit. One of the games he needed overtime to get into the hundreds. That was against Tampa Bay, which also blessed him with a touchdown that game. Saved his fantasy day entirely. More than saved it, really. Our RB3 here, Derrick Henry. Again, similar, had the lulls, which we've seen out of just about everybody on this list. We've seen a couple games where there's been some holdups for him between game script and even the game where he had, which was against the Bengals, where he only had 30 yards. He had a 79 yards on the receiving game.
Mhm.
So there's an interesting dynamic to him not being a pass catcher and somehow finding ways to score some points. So he's our RB3. Again, schedule for them, like they're playing the Chargers this week. A Derrick Henry 200-yard game, like maybe just bulldoze over some people. RB4, Jonathan Taylor. I don't see. I mean, Joe Mixon had his amazing game a while ago. He's an argument for down in this section of the list. Nick Chubb is my 6. Mixon is number 7 for me, just outside. Schedule for Mixon and Chubb, not good the rest of the way. So something that I did factor into a lot of these lists is what you are looking at from weeks 15 through 18.
Right.
Taylor has been better since the Colts have, I guess, found their identity is the correct phrase, but they're really just playing better, whatever way you want to say it. 82 yards versus the Cowboys before the bye week, and that was in a blowout. If that game stays close, he's probably upwards of 100, 110. I would imagine he's very close to a touchdown. He's more than serviceable as an RB1. I like the way the team's working with him. I like how he's reinvigorated himself is a better way of saying that. I think he has touchdown upside. Number 5 on this list is probably going to surprise some folks. It surprised Taylor when he read it. Number 5 is Tony Pollard for me. You probably disagree with that. It sounds like we never really got into the conversation, so I'll give you your piece to speak, but let me piece mine. If Austin Eckler is Christian McCaffrey light, Tony Pollard is Austin Eckler light. Pass game, he's there. He has really good explosiveness. No one can find 60 or 70 yards quicker in the NFC East than Tony Pollard can. And I'm saying that with Saquon there, with Gibson there, with Miles Sanders there. Pollard has a way of finding gaps, getting to 60 or 70. He's in the pass game. He has touchdowns. He scored, I think, 7 touchdowns over his last 7 games. Granted, there's a couple multi-touchdown games in there. Zeke has been just as good scoring a touchdown point of view. Like I mentioned it earlier in the show, he scored a touchdown 6 straight games. But Zeke isn't really the explosive one in the duo.
Mhm.
So I Zeke at my 10, I believe, 10 or 11, but not to where Pollard is. The only thing that you're not seeing Pollard get is a 60 to 65% snap share that Zeke sometimes touches, sometimes gets. I couldn't think of anyone else that would even really kind of come into the conversation besides Chubb or Mixon. Josh Jacobs.
That's
would
what,
probably, yeah. And he's not a horrible argument. Actually, come to think of it, I think I have him rated too low now that I'm thinking of my rankings. I want to say he's 8 or 9. But I don't hate the argument for Tony Pollard. Are you going to argue for Josh Jacobs?
Um,
I
well,
don't hate it.
yeah.
You won't-
I think Josh Jacobs has to be he's in my top 5, just because of the way he's been finishing out the season here. But to your point, we are taking into account the rest of the season. He faces very solid defenses all around, and also very solid running back defenses, New England, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and then finishes off with Kansas City. Kansas City is the only one that would be a favorable matchup, I would say, of those 4 games. So that's
That's
yeah. So that's not great for him. That being said, he is a big part of the game plan, and he has done well against like Denver per se.
Right.
Trying to look at some other. Yeah, he's played Denver twice and had actually very good games against them both. He had a good game against Kansas City, which we already talked about being a decent matchup. So yeah, I would say Jacobs would
He's a
be in my
candidate.
top 5. Yeah. But it's not to say I hate Pollard. Pollard has had a phenomenal year. Him and Zeke, great tandem. He's not going to get the usage that some of these other backs are getting because Zeke is there. So Pollard himself is a great running back. It's just I would say, I mean, he's right now on the year 7, 8 PPR, half point PPR.
Yeah. Don't hate it at all. 9 minutes ago, wide receivers. You can mix these any way you want. We're not even going to talk about them a lot because there's so many to choose from. Tyreek Hill's our 1, Justin Jefferson 2, Jamar Chase 3, Devonta Adams 4, Stephon Diggs 5. Throw whoever, like, there's so many ways you can rearrange all those. Is there anyone that I missed? I don't think there is. If there's anyone I missed who would really be considered the top. So tight ends.
Maybe Brown, AJ Brown, but
Yeah. Again, I don't hate it. If you want to throw them in there, sure. Tight ends, Travis Kelce is 1. TJ Hawkinson is 2. Larger target share, passing offense, pretty solid schedule the rest of the way out. He's the 2. Mark Andrews has fallen to 3. He was easily the 2, and except he hasn't scored a touchdown or had more than 65 yards since week 6, and that will drop you. Honestly, he probably should be closer to 4 or 5. Number 4, Pat Fryermuth, easy schedule, red zone targets, a favorite of Kenny Pickett. Carved himself out again, a very trustworthy workload. Pat Fryermuth is 4. Dalton Schultz would be my 5. George Kittle is not someone who I hate arguing for this 5. I don't see many other people who you could argue with out of a weak tight end class. But those would be the 2. I think you and me talked about this. That's basically the direction. Njoku would probably be another one who's just on that cusp. He's kind of the only thing that shakes me about him is that he's had a couple games of injuries over the last few weeks. So
yeah, I like
anything else?
Njoku. And then I would also throw out potentially Goddard since he might be coming back. He's had
Well, you
a
got to
decent
factor in
season.
some of his last few weeks, and he hasn't had last few weeks. So that's
Yeah,
why.
exactly.
Moving on, we're going to go into the bottom 10 teams, then the mid 10, then the top 10. So we'll read them from 32nd to 1st. 32 Texans. I shouldn't say that because they almost beat the Cowboys, but they did still lose. Texans. Rams are 31. Broncos at 30. Saints at 29. Cardinals 28. Colts 27. Panthers 26. Jaguars 24. Bears 23. Falcons 22. I don't see. I mean, you can move a couple of those teams around. I think they're all in the ballpark. It depends on how you interpret their offenses and where you think their growth is. Colts didn't change much from my last lineup, if I remember correctly. Panthers moved up. Sam Darnold will do that. Beating Seattle will do that. Jaguars have fallen a little in my rankings. They probably can rebound another game like they did in Tennessee, sure. Bears and Falcons are kind of there. Like they're playing for the offseason at this point. I think they are. Number 22 through 11. 22 is the Raiders. They've fallen considerably because of their ineptitude and defense in the second half. 21 Commanders, 20 the Steelers, 19 Packers, 18 New York Giants, 17 Patriots, 16 Browns, 15 Lions, 14 Jets. Notice they play each other this week and they're right next to each other. I don't hate swapping them in any way right there. Bucks at 13, Titans at 12, Chargers at 11. Bucks may be a little too high, but I feel like if I put them in like 18 range, I feel like I'm shooting Tom Brady like a dirty look. Like it's the GOAT. Like this was a team in our first rankings. He was in the top 5 because they were playing decently and they just weren't winning games. Now, our top 10, where it comes down to Number 10, Seahawks. Tough. I could probably swap them with the Chargers at 11 after the loss. Tough loss to the Panthers. Chargers beating a tough Miami team. Okay. Number 9, Ravens. We'll see where this stands come week 18 because now they have not their top quarterback for a week or Tyler Huntley for a little bit. Dolphins. Bengals at 6. 49ers at 5. No, that's 6. Excuse me. Bengals at 7. 49ers at 6. Vikings at 5. Bills at 4. Cowboys at 3. Chiefs 2. Eagles 1. I'm actually going to real quick change Bills and Cowboys. Put Bills 3, Cowboys 4, because the Cowboys almost just lost to the Texans, and that's very harmful. So, once again, 10 through 1, Seahawks, Ravens, Dolphins, Bengals, 49ers, Vikings, Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs, Eagles. I think Eagles are consensus 1, Chiefs probably consensus 2. You can take 3 through 6 and kind of throw them any order you want. I would say Vikings are towards the bottom half, Cowboys in the middle, 49ers are up in the air because of the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bengals now have injuries. Dolphins just lost. I think 7's or 8's a good spot for them. Seahawks and Ravens just lost. They shouldn't move up. So any disagreements with any of, I mean, in general, obviously you can be like, oh, well, 17 should be 16 and 24 should be 25. I mean, you can say all that crap, but like, is there anyone who's really out of place in that lineup to you?
Super out of place. No, I think you kind of touched on things like Chargers could potentially be in the top 10. Yeah. Like you said, there's like sort of packs really, and the packs can be shuffled around. I don't really see any crazy, like the Bears who have been on the up and up, maybe they're in 22 to 11, but yeah, you have the general packs in the right area. So,
I feel like that's a pretty strong, grouping entirely.
Yeah, we could almost like it might behoove us, and I won't take up too much time since we have a little bit more here, but we could almost make like tiers within this. Like you have them and then like we're talking about these packs, like it might be better to say this is the tier of these guys.
That might be a good idea for our week 18 because we're going to have a little bit more flexibility going to the playoffs. We're not going to have to talk about 20 games. We're going to have to talk about 6.
Yeah.
Super Bowl contenders list: Eagles, Cowboys, Bengals, Chiefs, 49ers. That's not supposed to be a top 5, but I think those are 5 you wouldn't be surprised if they made the Super Bowl. Bills you can throw in there too, really. If any of those 5 teams make it, I'm not surprised. But again, football is a game of 60 minutes at a time. Super Bowl picks. Last part of this show. I'm going to tell you, mine's Chiefs versus Eagles. Eagles look like the dominant force out of the NFC. I don't want to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I just don't at this point in the year. To throw 3 interceptions against the Broncos, still score 34 points and win. Good sign. They will have to overcome the Bengals, which is that's their sticking point. And going to be their challenge. But again, it's 60 minutes at a time. If the Bengals don't make it there, it makes it a lot easier to beat them. So there's also that shot. So that's my pick for the Super Bowl. I'm calling it right now. Chiefs, Eagles. Taylor, you have 45 seconds.
Yeah, I have the Bengals Eagles, and for that exact reason that the Bengals seem to have Mahomes' number. I also I don't see it happening, but the Niners potentially making it, but I don't see many teams beating out the Eagles.
Yeah, that'll be that would be a fantastic NFC Championship game. Eagles versus 49ers. Who wins that game? Because you have like almost one of the best offenses versus the best defense, and you have like a meh offense versus a pretty good defense. That'd be back and forth. But those are our power rankings updated through week 14. We gave you some host. We're going to be back on late Friday night. We'll be filming to go up on Saturday as we do every week, almost every week. But yeah, this has been episode 28. Look forward for 29, standard week 15 preview. For Derek, this is Taylor. You're going to listen to Bob Barker. We're going to get out of here.
Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet.
Peace out, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.